Good morning, Weir, Road to with your morning horn of Z's, your sip of coffee. From the coolest mug in the world, the Horn of Z's mug, Road to Ruta, we got to get more of these made. It was a big giveaway a while back. Um, First of all, Bitcoin Ben, keep it up. Third week, smoothie week. If you want a tastier smoothie, add more fruit. Don't follow the exact directions of the vegetable smoothies. The vegetable smoothies are tough to stomach sometimes. Add more fruit, it's like a milkshake. All right, moving on. And he's doing great. Everybody keep an eye on Bitcoin Ben. While you can, he's shrinking as we speak. All right, let's talk about the coming crash. Why both sides want it. And I've said this for a long, long time. Way longer than Bitcoin's been around. The good guys want to crash the system and the bad guys want to crash the system. The bad guys want to crash the system to take over total control of everything and to wipe out their bad deeds. The good guys want to crash the system to get rid of the bad guys. And there's good guys within the Federal Reserve System, within the U.S. government. And there's bad guys within the Federal Reserve System and the U.S. government. There's more good guys than bad guys. Because now, back in the past, the bad guys could hide everything. And it was condoned by the administration. Now they can't hide anything. So the bad guys are being flushed out. Don't forget, back in December of 2016, when Trump said, I will abolish the Federal Reserve. Keep that in mind. You know how Trump's every 2 seconds fighting the Fed. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. The Fed is all part of the plan. The Fed's going to fall on the sword. The Fed's going to do something really stupid, and they just announced it today. So let's take a look at what's really going on. And Fed's saying it right now. Here's an article from late July. Trump poised to take control of the Federal Reserve. President Trump sharply criticized the Fed this week, saying interest rate increases are hurting the economy. Trump will have the opportunity to fashion the central bank in the image he would like, as he has 4 vacancies to fill on the Board of Governors. There's 4 vacancies. That's insane. The result should be more politicized Fed. How can you get more politicized? It is 100%. Are you going to be more politicized than 100%? The question is, whose policies are they trying to follow? So here's what's happening right now as we speak. So Bill Dudley, the head of the Fed New York, gets up and says, we can overthrow the president. Pretty much said that. Let's talk about what he said. At the start of August, we explained how by scapegoating the global economy for the Fed's July 31st rate cut, the central bank had now trapped itself, having certified before the world that any further escalation in Trump's trade war are effectively a justification for more rate cuts. Whether this was Powell's intention is unclear, although as we said at the time, quote, it certainly means that Trump is now de facto in charge of the Fed's monetary policy by way of U.S. foreign policy. It also means that, as B of A wrote, quote, the Fed is unintentionally underwriting the trade war. And it's absolutely true if the Fed does what Trump wants. So Dudley gets up, fast forward to today, when in retrospect may be seen as a watershed moment in exposing just how political the Federal Reserve always has been, despite repeated lies by various officials claiming otherwise. None other than former Goldman Sachs chief economist and former head of the Fed New York, Bill Dudley, after looking at the chart above and having realized that the Fed is underwriting Trump's trade war, made a modest proposal in a Bloomberg op-ed, which he advised Powell to take a political stand against enabling Trump's trade war and potentially go as far to push the economy into a recession to prevent Trump from getting reelected. Echoing what Powell said in his Jackson Hole speech, where he dedicated a section to Trump's ongoing trade wars and blaming them for the Fed's rising inability to interfere in the U.S. economy, Dudley begins with a clear political statement arguing this, quote, Donald Trump's trade war with China keeps undermining the confidence of business and consumers, worsening the economic outlook. Dudley, who was among those globalists who enabled China's tremendous ascent and reassured that Beijing will surpass the U.S. economically and militarily at some point in 2032 if the status quo is left unchanged, he ignores the consequences of his actions and instead slams Trump for being the one president willing to challenge China's hegemonic ascent and upcoming Diocletian's trap, which, as we noted before, virtually assures war with China if nothing is done. Saying that, quote, this manufactured disaster in the making presents the Federal Reserve with a dilemma. Should it mitigate the damage by providing offsetting stimulus or refuse to play along? Dudley's advice, if the ultimate goal is a healthy economy, the Fed should seriously consider the latter approach, as in raise interest rates. And then you go all the way down to the bottom of this. You guys can read this article. It's on Zero Hedge. They say, here's where the narrative gets downright absurd. Because while Dudley refers to the Fed as apolitical, underscoring that further in the next paragraph where he says, quote, I understand and support Fed officials' desire to remain apolitical. He immediately refutes himself by admitting that the Fed has never been apolitical, and in fact, it is the U.S. central bank that, through its actions, chooses the U.S. president, and says, central bank officials face a choice. Enable the Trump administration to continue down a disastrous path of trade war escalation, or send a clear signal that if the administration does so, the president, not the Fed, will bear its risks, including the risk of losing the next election. And the punchline, quote, this is a quote from his op-ed, there's even an argument that the election itself falls within the Fed's purview. Absolutely. The Fed doesn't do all bad things. When Greenspan was the head of it, he got the criminal Bush grandpa out of there by weakening the economy right before the election. The Fed also has the ability to ensure his re-election if things seem like they're headed off course. Basically, the Fed, Dudley is throwing itself under the bus by saying the Fed can rig elections, and they have. Of course, if the economy's doing shitty, whoever's in office is not going to get reelected. But this goes way back to all my work on the Federal Reserve over the past 15 years. The Fed is going to fall on the sword. This is part of it. I would not be surprised at all if Powell raises interest rates in spite of Trump's demanding lower interest rates. Either way, we're screwed. We're not screwed. We're better off. What's the biggest problem today? It's debt. Take out the Fed, destroy, let Deutsche Bank go down. What happens? Poof. The entire insane monetary situation is gone instantly. 50 trillion in derivatives with 50 trillion in counterparty risk. We'll take out every single bank and every single financial institution on planet Earth. Now you could say that it'll just get bailed out like it always has been. Okay, next time it'll be 100 trillion and then a quadrillion. When does it stop? And we all know, I've shown, Catherine Austin Fitts has shown, they're printing money behind the scenes and not telling anybody about it. Quadrillions of dollars. There is no such thing as a monetary system anymore. They were doing it all along, but now they're telling you about it. I told you about it in the Road to Ruta comments. What do you think Ruta wrote in the sand? Print money to infinity. This is nothing new. I've been talking about this since January 1st, 2007, when I wrote I found the information for the first Road to Ruta article called The Road to Ruta, or the Implementation of a New Gold Standard. And there's the Fed comic books that explains all of it. And my full analysis, you can find this right at the top of Road to Ruta. That's what Ruta is in the computer programming language. This is from something John Kimeny wrote, basic computer programming language. This was a manual from the 1960s. There's Root A, taxes, checkbook, inventory. It's a Merkle tree, is what they call it in computer programming. And then Stephen Duveau, the guy who wrote the comic book, who was he? He was a computer programmer. He was military intelligence, worked for the Fed, and then he went on to put the programs in at Citibank, Fidelity, and then IBM in the PSID project, where they embedded computer programming language into everything, nuclear power plants, you name it. And of course, Stephen Duveau has a back door. He can click a mouse and take out a nuclear power plant That's how much control these people have. And believe it or not, they were trying to do it for the good guys, but here's Ruta writing in the sand an economic formula called Onto the Road to the Golden Age. Ultimate conclusion right there, print money to infinity. And then in 2007, what does Ruta write? All that is gone, and Ruta writes 11 plus 9, crescent moon, Islamic crescent moon in the sand. 9/11, that's when the good guys said we've had enough because of what they did for 9/11. And Ruta was telling you exactly when they were going to take down the system in 2008. On 9/11 at 11 o'clock in the morning, they clicked the mouse. We are approaching another 9/11, by the way, 11 years later. I'm just saying. Go check it out if you're interested. And if you don't believe me, if you think I'm full of crap, fine. I've had people tell me I'm full of crap about the Road to Ruta stuff for a long, long time. But answer me one question. This is the Federal Reserve Bank of New York's comic book site. And here's a little character named Glicks, Glix, who sits there and sings about the Federal Reserve. Who does that remind you of? It's classic. There I am in front of the Federal Reserve Bank, just like I did at Bitcoin Ben's event in front of the bank in the Wild West, or the, what was it called? The Blanco event. I'm not making this stuff up, my friends, and the Fed knows it too. They even put me in a comic book. There I am again. And here's Glicks, Brad, which is even closer to my real name, saying about the financial services and the Fed provides. Believe anything you want. It's here in, I was going to say black and white, full color. Want more information? Go to Road to Ruta, dive in, because all the secrets are there. Okay, so yes, the Fed is planning to fall on the sword. The Fed will be absorbed into the Treasury as the old system is gone and then a new system starts. And what's the best way to start a new system? I would say with new foundation of how to deal with capital funds. And there's no better than Veritasium. This is the cryptocurrency that the Fed is going, or the SEC is going after. Why? Because it can replace the SEC even. Reggie Middleton has found the key to taking all the money away from the criminals. And it's not rocket science, but it was a brilliant idea that Reggie came up with. I'll play a little bit of it. Here's Reggie talking about it. Now remember, the SEC is claiming Reggie's a fraud. The whole thing's a fraud. It's all bullshit. Meanwhile, for the past 2 years, Reggie's been working his ass off with the SEC on his back, following up, trying to bust every deal he ever puts together. Listen to it. You can go to the Veritasium website to get a better understanding of just what Veritasium is. Here's a little bit of him explaining it.
So we've created what we call the VEDA, Veritasium Autonomous Dynamic Interactive Distributed Interactive Research. Basically, we take the research, we feed it into a smart contract. That smart contract is linked to 20 other smart contracts, and they work as a machine, gears in a machine, to replicate your Goldman Sachs, your JP Morgans, your Mitsubishi Banks, your Morgan Stanleys, etc. Okay? It actually takes research, it goes and purchases the subject of the research in the open markets. You can have contracts that actually do that. Yes, it's a technological marvel. So it goes and purchases these assets and brings it and holds it in a smart contract. It then allows holders of Veri, which is our token, and our token represents prepaid fees for our products and services, or basically the key to get in. It's just like when you buy a ticket to get on a plane, the ticket represents the paid fee to get on the plane. Veri represents the paid fee to get into our financial machine. You pay the fee to get in the machine, which is a Veri token, and then you have access to the portfolio. It purchases the contents of that portfolio for you on an individual basis. And now we've taken research to the next level. Okay, now is the research unique, comprehensive, unparalleled, with no competition. But instead of just reading research or attempting to act on your own, you can have a smart contract, a set of smart contracts, execute the research for you. So now it purchases Populous in between the valuation bands, above the minimum price, but below the maximum price, so you don't overpay for it, according to our research, and it creates a portfolio. This portfolio could be up to 99.9 years. So the Veritasium, the VEDA application is an investor's application. It's not a trading machine. You don't go in and out. You don't try and hedge short positions. There's no churn. Basically, it takes the best of the best, the cream of the crop. It gives you exposure to it. So You have Populous, you have others such as PayPal, maybe Ethereum, you have Monero, because it also researches platform entities as well. A platform token would be a token that represents, say, Bitcoin and blockchain. So the Bitcoin token, which is lowercase b, is representative and trades and travels on the Bitcoin blockchain, which is a platform, capital B. Same thing with ETH and Ethereum, Monero, Zcash, etc. So we pick the best of the best. We create a portfolio. That portfolio is customized for you. And whenever the prices are out of our valuation range, it will not purchase it. Okay, whenever the tokens are not available, it won't purchase it. Now you have a custom portfolio fully vetted by a team of 5 expert analysts. Okay, one of those analysts has 13-year track record of calling some of the biggest macro and fundamental trends to date. So what this is now, can anybody guess what industry I've just disintermediated? I'm going to ask for a little participation. Somebody raise their hand, or I'm going to pick on somebody. Nobody? Okay, I'll pick on you. What industry does this look like? Excuse me? Financial services. As a matter of fact, one financial service where the employees make a lot of money. Think of hedge funds and hedge fund managers. Now, hedge fund managers do this as well. They allegedly do a lot of research. They pick the best assets, and then they wait for the assets to go up in price. Okay? Couple of big differences. Hedge fund managers, hedge funds in general are a partnership. You have a general partner called the GP, which is the manager or the manager's company. Then you have limited partners called the LP, which are the investors. When you go in as a limited partner, and it's usually high net worth individuals, other funds, sovereign funds, wealthy individuals, etc. They purchase the LP, and then they get what is called a lockup, but 5 or 10 years usually. So your money has to be locked up between 5 and 10 years in order to participate. Total lack of liquidity. You participate in the Vader, you put your capital in, you could create up to a 99.9 year contract, which means your capital is locked up for 99.9 years, or 1 year, or 6 months, or 3 years, or whatever you choose. Now, if for whatever reason you want to get out, you simply click cancel contract, okay? And the contract will unwind, and it will either sell the tokens off for you in the market, or it will physically deliver the tokens to your wallet. This happens instantaneously. So unlike a hedge fund, unlike any other fund, a private equity fund, a venture capital fund, etc., you now have total liquidity, number one. You also have total control, number two.
Unbelievable concept, simple as can be, but it is what these criminal banks are stealing, how they steal wealth from us. The banks, the hedge funds, all of it. You can apply Veritasium to so many things. And this is what the SEC wants to stop. The SEC is calling this a complete fraud and calling Reggie a fraud. It is complete bullshit. The Vadar, what he's talking about, is what they forced him to stop over a year ago. Reggie was beta testing, it was working great. The SEC says, don't you dare, and goes in and stops it. Reggie's deal with the Jamaican Stock Exchange. The SEC went behind Reggie's back to stop that deal. And they're trying to stop his very gold and very silver contracts. It is insane what these criminals are trying to do. We need everybody to jump up and down and say, SEC, you are full of shit. And you're criminal, and you're trying to keep the old system in place. Now, here's the good side of this story is they've been basically put on hold for a month. While the old system's going to break down, the old criminality within the stock exchange, the bond market, the metals market, the crypto markets is all going to be exposed for the crimes that they have committed, because everybody will be trying to get their real assets off these exchanges. They won't be able to. What is the solution? Voila, Reggie's got it, Veritasium. You're off anytime you want. You can get out. You can stay in. It will be integrated into our new system, in my opinion. And today you can pick up Veritasium at $10.98. Yes, it has doubled, or about doubled, since the non-event of the court hearing. They didn't want a court hearing because they knew the ridiculousness of the SEC's position would be exposed to the world. So they did a deal with Reggie the day before. I don't know what the deal is. Reggie hasn't said anything yet. He probably can't say anything. If you can get your hands on some Veritasium, it's really hard to get. because the exchanges won't trade it. But right now, if you look at it, look at the total. Now, Fork Delta is where a lot of people are trading their Veri. $100,000 was total volume in last 24 hours, which is nothing. Litecoin trades billions. Yeah, it's all rehypothecated. You can tell how important Veritasium is. Fork Delta, out of all these exchanges, the only real peer-to-peer type exchange, decentralized exchange, at least close to it, would be Fork Delta. Look at that. Look at $100,000 of volume. Look at all the other ones. Mercatox is the next best thing. A total of $45,000 of volume. It is insane what's going on with Veritasium. They will not allow it to be traded on the regular markets, the crypto markets, because every Coinbase, Kraken, Poloniex, Gemini, they all know what Veritasium is. It's a way to destroy their exchange and have peer-to-peer transactions. So, that's where we are, my friends. Do what you will with that information. This is not trading advice. Yes, Veritasium is in the hot seat because the big money can destroy Veritasium with a click of a mouse and put the price at zero, but it won't be real Veritasium that is being traded. If you're looking at it as a trade, don't buy any Veritasium because they can put the price at zero. Get Fat BTC back in there, do a billion-dollar trade to zero, and nobody gets any Veritasium off. They're trying to buy it a penny. It is a con. It is a fraud. Now is the time to get all your assets in your own possession. If you have any cryptocurrencies in Coinbase, in Kraken, in Gemini, this is about to happen. The destruction of the Fed that I sing about. The destruction of the Fed is going to happen because of the criminal banks within the Fed. Deutsche Bank, keep an eye on Deutsche Bank. I've been saying it for years. Deutsche Bank, Deutsche Bank, Deutsche Bank. All of Europe now, actually. They're going to take down all of Europe, which means all of the U.S. And they're doing it on purpose. What did Dudley say? Let's raise interest rates just so Trump doesn't get elected. And the people behind the scenes say, hey, let's click a mouse and destroy everything, Mr. Dudley. Anyway, that's what's going on the road to Ruta. If you're interested in more, go to roadtoruta.com. Watch the first video right here, an introduction to Ruta. It explains how I came to this crazy theory of the road to Ruta theory, that there's people behind the scenes, the good guys, long before Q, long before anything like that, that were working to take out the banks, take out the Fed. They were working from within the Fed. So go check it out. And if you want, why not join the Road to Ruta? Subscribe today, and you will get 100 Theta tokens and 500 Theta fuel along with a silver coin for a 1-year subscription. This is Bix. Talk to you later.